Hi, thank you so much for clicking on my channel. My name is Kristen, and today we are going to be talking about some fantastic YA fantasy books that are all about witches and thus perfect for spooky season. Welcome back to Lit Couture. I thought it would be perfect this season to do a witch book marathon and break them up into 3 different videos. If you don't know, witches, the real kinds, worship a goddess, and they basically break her up into 3 different faces or facets: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. So I thought, you know what, let's do a video for each one. The maiden can be all about YA fantasy. The mother usually does pregnancy, but I don't love that trope, and I can only read Moon Given, so we're basically doing young witches trying to find their true love. And the crone, we're gonna do some crazy old feminist witches getting into all kinds of mischief. That one's gonna be really fun. There's some really feisty older witches out there. In this video today, we are going to be focusing on the young, delightful maidens, aka YA witches, who are all roughly 18-ish, and as such, all of these books will be granted a superlative, a la senior year in high school. Let's get started. The first book I read, and one that I sort of matched, although I have 2 outfit matches today because I have no chill when it comes to Halloween, is The Babysitters Coven by Kate Williams. Now, I got this one for Spookopoly, and I was not super duper thrilled because I kind of had the feeling it was going to be a little too YA for me, and I was kind of right. So this one is about a girl named Esme who has a babysitters club. I'm not kidding. Like, they reference the old book series and everything with her bestie at school, and they're doing pretty well. And one day a new girl named Cassandra rolls in, and this girl is beautiful, and they're like, she's never going to be friends with us. And instead Cassandra's like, hey, heard to have a babysitters club, I want to join. Well, it turns out Cassandra lives in this like abandoned creepy old house that her mom died in, but she found a note in it from her mother that said, "Dear Cassandra, find the babysitters, love mom." Not very subtle, but she's found the babysitters. And as you can imagine, it turns out, well, they're witches. And yes, hijinks and adventures ensue. Now, this book does read a little bit young, I will say, but if you enjoyed adventures in babysitting, you will probably find yourself sitting down and enjoying this one. Now, the part of me that super enjoyed this book was the couture part of the Lit Couture channel. Throughout this book, fashion actually plays a surprisingly big role, and her and her best friend, not Cassandra, the original best friend, who totally is not a witch and is completely left in the dark throughout most of this, they give all of their fashion-y looks titles, and let me share with you some of my favorites. Y2K VMAs, Be All You Can Be Barbie, Feminist Rodeo Queen, Coco Chanel at her summer house, No Doubt Rhodey, Sylvia Plath Goes to Prom, lead singer of Jewel Tones, which is a 90s group that they made up. It's R&B, in case you were wondering. It was hilarious. The other thing that was so great about this book is that while I did complain a little bit that was a little too YA for me, it was because the voice felt so authentic. This truly was told in a high school voice, and that is why I think 12-year-old me would have eaten this up. This reads like a Disney Channel original movie. I swear, I sat there and I was like, I am reading whoever wrote Halloween Town. I am reading whoever wrote Mom Went on a Date with a Vampire. I am reading whoever wrote Twitches. This felt like that. I got all those nostalgic, wonderful feels. You knew nothing too horrible was going to happen. You knew the ending was going to be kind of crazy and wild and out there and cheesy, and there was going to be some big dramatic scene, and it was great, and it was all on the kids, and they had to do it and save the world before their parents got home. It's that kind of book. The magic itself was pretty fun, but it constantly relies on using other references to do the hard work for it. So it's constantly saying blah, 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 like in Buffy, blah, 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 like in The Craft. And it's so referential that it basically, if you don't know those other things, you're gonna be completely confused, and it relies on them so heavily that it tries to get out of the work of describing any of its own magic system for itself. So that was a little frustrating, and I'm not sure what the point of that was. All in all, the superlative for this one is most likely to get made into a TV adaptation. Honestly, Julie and the Phantoms got robbed. There should have been a 2nd season. Maybe they can do something with this for us. Next up is a book I pulled off my shelves, and honestly, I don't know where this came from. I don't know when I bought it. I don't know how it ended up on my shelves. And honestly, after reading it, I'm completely creeped out because this book might be haunted and maybe it's haunting me. This is Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton. 3 chapters in, I had to make a rule that I could only read this sucker during daylight hours. Allow me to set the atmosphere. A charming medieval-ish village, little cottages and farmlands and fields, and everyone does their own little thing, and there's no blights, and everyone's healthy and well fed, and everyone's clean. Nobody is dirty, and there's no disease. All injuries heal super fast. Babies never die, moms never die in childbirth. Childbirth isn't actually that bad, in fact. Everybody is happy, and everyone knows everyone, and no one ever leaves the village, and it's starting to sound a little creepy. Yeah, it should. There's always the catch, isn't there? Well, first of all, don't go into the freaking Devil's Forest, in case the name didn't give that away, because if you go too close to the Devil's Forest, right next to the village, you will literally hear the clicking of bones and the sound of these strange, creepy little creatures clicking their teeth together. Probably because they want to eat you, okay? And these strange little creatures have blank, hollowed out eyes, or maybe purple glowing eyes, and like purple thorns for feet, and they're really freaking creepy, okay? Nothing is right in the Devil's Forest, as you might have imagined. So every 7 years, there's this giant tree called the bone tree. And you know it's not going to be good, and I know it's not going to be good, and it's a giant white tree to resemble bones. And every 7 years, it gets red leaves and looks like it's dripping blood. And when that happens, you know the slaughter moon is about to occur. And what is the slaughter moon? I'm so glad you asked me, because that is when the best, brightest, most wonderful, happiest, most self-sacrificial boy in the town is sent into the Devil's Wood, and he has to survive a night there. And you know what, most of them, they're never seen again. But as long as they do this every 7 years, you know what? The rest of the village gets to live happily ever after and never suffer for a minute. So it's totally worth it. The only problem is, at the start of this book, it's only been 3 years since the last slaughter tree, and all of a sudden there's illness and blight. So Mare, one of the Grace Witches, there are 3 Grace Witches who come down and represent the original Grace Witches who made a deal with the devil in the forest to create this delightful compact. Her best friend Arthur, who notices fun little blight in the fields that's killing all of their barley, and Rune, the saint apparent, that's what they call the super fun, happy guy who gets to go die in the forest every 7 years because he's the best, most wonderful guy in the village. These 3 besties are looking around and realizing, oh crap, we thought we had another 4 years, but guess time's up. There's the red leaves on the trees. Slaughter moon has come early. And you know these 3 idiots are gonna do something stupid, because none of them wants their best friends to go sacrifice themselves, but each one of them are willing to go into the forest and confront the devil on their own. Yay, teenagers! This book sounds a little whatever. The writing. This is one that is going to haunt me and stick with me, and I am not going to forget for a very long time. The descriptions of bones everywhere and clicking and clinking together like freaking macabre wind chimes, okay? And the cover really is perfect for it. There is purple blood. There are these purple beautiful flowers, and vine is intermixed with the most horrific, creepy, otherworldly animals. I mean, this book will get under your skin. Tessa Gratton, I've never heard of. I've never heard of this book. Maybe it's because everyone who read it was just too creeped out to talk about it, but this was so effective. I also made it a rule not to eat during this one. That's how effective the descriptions are. I'm just letting you know now. And I even reread the description on this one multiple times just to make sure, but it does not prepare you for anything that is coming in this book. And neither can I really tell you anymore, except to say buckle up, because the witchcraft, fairly mild. The magic and haunting elements, this is the one you want to pick up for Halloween. Oh my goodness. Writing is just so dark and so haunting. You also get some queer rep that just seems to come out of nowhere, and it's done so beautifully and so well. It does not stick out like a sore thumb. It is not there just to be there. It's part of the story and a part of the character. It's not tokenism. I thought it was just so incredibly well done, and honestly, I think that character was possibly my favorite. And I have to say that as much as I am saying this book was haunting and the descriptions were terrifying, they were still draped in beauty. I don't know how to describe this book. I don't know how to qualify this book. All I can say was this was an experience unlike any other I have ever had. Superlative. Most likely to get you in the mood to go to a haunted house or to hide under your bed. You do you. This is a book that I read quite some time ago, not this year. This is The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab, and I'm going to recommend this one, but with some caveats. They say there is a witch who lives outside the village, referred to as the Near Witch. They say not to listen to the call of the wind at the night, because the wind is lonely and looking for company. And they say that everyone in the town of Near knows everyone else in the town of Near. But if one of those things suddenly stops being true, such as when Lexi meets a brand new boy named Cole, does that mean all of those things are not true? That is the question suddenly posed when Lexi meets Cole. And of course, he is going to be her romantic paramour who a little bit of a troublemaker and is continually, for some reason, trying to get her to go further and further from their little village town. Also, when he appears, suddenly children are continually disappearing from their beds every night in the village. So, you know, that's a little sus. That is the general basis for this story. The town, of course, is blaming Cole, but Lexi is like, you know what? I have the feeling maybe it's the Near Witch. Has anyone actually gone and like tried to find this witch? No. Okay, maybe we should do that. I mean, she's got a point. So this reads very much like a fairy tale or folk tale, and that is probably what I enjoyed the most about this. V.E. Schwab's writing is never going to let you down. That is the best part of this. It is so atmospheric. Her writing is beautiful. This takes place out in the moors, and you are going to get that feeling of being enveloped by the fog out there. You are going to feel like you are lost out in these gorgeous moors. It is such a wonderful read for this time of year. V.E. Schwab knows how to write. We all know this. We do. Okay, we know this at this point. And while it was spookier than I was expecting, my trouble with this book is that it gets a little repetitive. Night comes, child goes missing, Lexi goes out and looks for the child and the Near Witch, comes back, wash, rinse, repeat. However, we do see that in folktales and fairy tales, so I get what V.E. Schwab was trying to do with that. I also have to say it does read particularly young, especially towards the romance aspects of the story. It does have that folktale fairy tale thing that I love this time of year. So if you haven't read it yet, maybe consider giving it a try. I did read this years ago, and part of me is saying, you thought it was young then, but the other part of me is saying, you know what, you've changed as a reader since then. You might like it better now. I'm not sure. I'm on the fence with this one. My superlative for this one is most likely to make you want to dig out your old book of fairy tales and see, wait, isn't this one in there? Are we sure it's not? Next, I decided time to get through some more Spookopoly reads. This is Wild is the Witch by Rachel Griffin, and I am so excited. I got one of the gorgeous copies with the full print on the front. Ugh. You know I was tempted to match this with a dress. This one is about a girl named Iris Gray who works out on a wildlife refuge with her mom. Her bestie there is a wolf. And she loves it. She loves nature. She's a witch, and her magic works well with animals there. And she connects so beautifully with them and is able to kind of keep them calm when they're injured. And her mom is really great at helping them and healing them. So they make a fantastic team. Interning there is a super annoying guy named Pike who thinks he knows everything and is all about the science and the organization and doesn't get magic at all and kind of hates witches. Witches are out in this world, and he makes that known to her, and she's like, okay, definitely not telling you I'm a witch because wow, yikes. And the two of them do not get along at all. He's constantly trying to like get out of chores, and she is super frustrated with him. So one thing her grandmother taught her to do is to like cast spells and then just put them into the earth, and that's how you get your feelings out. It's like writing a letter and then ripping it up and never sending it. No harm, no foul. One night, Pike really pisses her off, so she decides to curse him into becoming a witch, which is super freaking illegal and usually kills the person you do this to, FYI. And while she is doing this and trying to bind it to the herbs and then send it into the earth, a freaking owl who was there healing at the nice refuge, who had kind of gotten out of his cage, is like, hey, I'm going to screw everything up for you and absorb this curse and then fly away so you can't catch me. Bye. The problem with this is that owls are sacred to witches in these books and they work as amplifiers. So if she does not go and get to this owl and make sure nothing happens to him and get to him and get that curse out of him and get it into the earth, should anything happen to Mr. Owl, that curse will affect lots and lots and lots of people and potentially kill all of them if they can't handle becoming witches and magic going into them. Good job, Iris. She doesn't want to tell her mom this because her mom will tell the council potentially, and the council will put her in jail because this is really, 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 really bad. She tells her mom she's gonna go after the owl because the owl's still injured and can't defend itself, and they're in the wilderness and they're like wolves and bears that might go after the owl, and if the owl dies, really bad. And her mom's like, oh sure, you can go, but it's kind of dangerous out there, even for a witch. Why don't you bring Pike? He's an ornithologist. That's his specialty. Doesn't he need one less project? And Pike, of course, is like, yeah, I do need one less project. I'd love to go with you. So off they go camping together, and her tent gets blown away in the first night. It's that one tent trope, and we all know how this is going to end. If you had told me that this was Rachel Griffin's very first book, I would have believed you. It is not. Apparently the nature of witches is. I thought this was such a regression in terms of writing. She had so many amazing opportunities to do incredible nature descriptions, but the writing truly felt like a step back. I don't know if this was her way of saying that this character is so much less mature, and certainly her actions were less mature, so gotcha there, girl. But her character was not younger than her previous characters, so I'm very confused why the book was written the way that it was. The plot itself, I had problems with. By the time we got to the end, she had basically written herself into a corner. She had to take away essentially one of the characters' agency in order to give everyone a happy ending. And I hate it when characters do that, okay? When particularly romance or forgiveness or a combination of the two is forced, I have issues with that. And that is exactly what happened in this book. The entire ending of this book hinged on these two characters, which we knew they were going to fall in love, but if they had not developed feelings, things would have ended so incredibly badly. And so much forgiveness and so much trust was required. Poor Pike was put in impossible situations where he would have looked so terrible had he made other decisions or said other things at the end of this book, that I felt like he had no agency and no other options. And that really, really bothered me. And I was really surprised by Rachel Griffin because usually I feel like she creates pretty well-rounded characters. And while she does usually force them to choose between duty and self, in this case, I think she took away the agency of one of the two main characters in the book. And I felt very frustrated. I think I'm alone in really not liking this book because it has pretty high ratings. But yeah, I am very sorry to say this just proved that not every Rachel Griffin book is going to be a 5-star for me. And I think part of the problem is that I read this one right after Bring Me Your Midnight, which I'm going to talk about next, which is a 5-star and one of my favorite reads of the year and is also by Rachel Griffin. So, superlative! Most likely to leave you frustrated because you saw all the gosh darn potential in the world, and least likely to live up to that potential. Ouch. But Bring Me Your Midnight. First of all, yes, I bought a dress just for this book. Okay, like, oh my god. Oh my god. This book was one of my most anticipated reads of the whole entire year, and it did not let me down. In fact, yes, special edition from Fabled Book Box. Look at this beauty. Oh, I'm so glad they kept the original. This part I don't love. I don't know why we had to do like rainbow holographics, but I love that they did the island on the back. Okay. Oh, I am so glad. So glad. The fact that I have a signed edition of one of my favorite books of the year. Look at how all the chapters start in here. My gosh, you guys. Okay, I'm done drooling over this now. I'm very sorry. I will tell you what the book is about. Oh, this good. Okay, sorry. This is about Tana. And Tana, her whole life, has kind of been brought up to be like the perfect child. And she loves that. She lives on this fantastic island called the Witchery right off the mainland. And she loves it. She loves working in her family's little shop. She works in a perfumery. Her best friend works in the tea shop. Like, it's super charming. And they're all witches. And they all have this like little bit of magic that they put into their perfumes. So maybe a scent will be infused to help remind you of one of your favorite memories, or a tea will help make you feel a little calmer, or give you a little boost of energy. Just a little oomph, you know? They live off the mainland, and the mainlanders kind of used to really freaking fear witches. So at every full moon, they do this ritual. They go into the water and they like purge most of their magic into the oceans. And now the mainlanders are like, okay, cool. We won't persecute witches. You're fine now. Also, we'll come visit your island and like drink your cool teas. Okay then. So this takes place just as she is about to marry the governor's son on the mainland, Landon. And he is very upfront with her. He's like, I think this alliance is a great idea. I think you're a great girl. I'm not sure we're ever going to fall in love, but I think we're a good match. And I think we both believe in this alliance. So I think we have a fair chance at a good life together. And she's like, that's super freaking romantic. Okay. But fair is fair. And he's being very honest with her. And he is really handsome. So there's that. But one night, she's heading out to do the midnight ritual. She's running a little bit late, and she collides right in the middle of the friggin' meadow with this boy who she's never seen before. And she's like, you missed the ferry. You can't be here tonight. And he's like, it's cool. Look, I live here. And she's like, no, you don't. I know everyone who lives here. He's like, my name is Wolf. We're part of the old coven. Our part of the island's invisible. We practice what you call dark magic. It's really high magic that you're terrified of. We use all of our powers. It's cool. And then she misses the ritual. So she's like, oh my God, the last witch who did this died because all of her magic like ate her up and burned her up from the inside out. Can you help me fix this? And he's like, yeah, I can. But to do it, you have to practice the magic you're terrified of and like is illegal. And so what are you gonna do? What do you think she's gonna do? She's gonna totally go practice the high dark magic with Wolf, and she's gonna love it. And now she's gonna have to make a decision because this high dark magic feels really good and really natural, and she's really good at it. And Wolf's really handsome and romantic. So sorry, Landon, you've got competition. This was so good. Oh my goodness, this was so good. By far, this was the oldest, most mature feeling of Rachel Griffin's book. This does not feel like a YA book. This quote, he comes alive in darkness, so darkness I become. Like, come on. This should be going viral at this point. Oh, I am so in love. Okay, so this absolutely had me swooning, and it took me half a minute to figure out what exactly it made me like fall all over myself for this book. And it wasn't just the writing, which by the way is so unbelievably beautiful, let me tell you. Okay, she has got this entire island to describe. We've got gorgeous water references. This girl's like a major swimmer, so the underwater stuff was just stunning. We've got the foresty stuff to describe. We've got the incredible witch stuff to describe. And the way she describes your senses when you're experiencing witchcraft, gorgeous, okay? Beautiful as always, but this in particular had this lilting romantic tone. And I think it was the fact that we had people working on these perfumes and all these crushed rose petals all over. And even though it's autumn in the book, the magic on the island keeps it so every flower is always blooming around them, and they're always going through these cottagecore scenes where they're picking them for their teas. And oh my goodness, I just ate every second of this up. Okay, I truly did. What I think completely had me falling all over myself for this book, yeah, I'm like literally curling up in my little chair here to like talk to you about this, like girl to girl or girl to guy, whoever you are. It had total Phantom of the Opera vibes, which I am completely obsessed with. Obviously Landon's Rao, and obviously Wolf is Phantom. Do I really need to tell you that? I don't think so. Instead of singing, we've got illicit magic practiced at midnight in the dark. We've got this forbidden love thing going on. We've got the teacher thing going on. Obviously he's touching her and getting her to feel her core essence, and that amazing like love triangle where you know you have like the one guy who's like this dark, mysterious, probably like the wrong forbidden choice, and then the upstanding like governor's son citizen. And oh my God, I'm sorry. Who was not rooting for the Phantom? And what was so fantastic is that we saw so much more of Wolf in this book. And even from Landon, we got a good sense of his values. Okay, we really did. But Wolf, we really saw him. Okay. And Rachel Griffin just freaking had me swooning, okay? He got some amazing swoon-worthy lines, let me freaking tell you. And there was so much more emphasis on romance in this book. Like, I was literally, like, giggling and blushing and doing the, like, oh. I can't do that in a witch's hat. That's very annoying. Ah! Literally, that was happening, okay? I died for this book. Was this book wildly unpredictable? No, but it was the little elements, the tiny elements that she used to create a whole new magical world that made it work so well for me. This one felt like a fairy tale and absolutely one of my favorite reads of the whole entire year. Superlative, absolutely most likely to make you swoon. Rachel Griffin! Ah! Next, I want to talk about an audiobook, and I listened to this quite some time ago, so bear with me a little bit on this one, but it is so cute, and I've never heard anyone talk about it, so I do want to mention it. It's called 3 Kisses, 1 Midnight, and it's like, I don't want to call it 3 short stories, so I'm going to say it's 3 novellas bound together, all set in the same place. And each one is written by a different author. We've got one by Roshani Chachki, one by Zendaya Menon, and one by Evelyn Sky, and each one is about a different character. However, the story all weaves together. It all takes place on the same night. It is about 3 best friends, Oni, Ash, and True, and they all live in the same semi-magical town called Moonridge. If you live in a town called Moonridge, it's totally magical. Who are we kidding? So the story goes that every 400 years, the Lady of Moonridge, who is, by the way, a star in the sky, right next to the moon, and next to her is another star who's like her eternal like lover. They get to live there together forever. Okay, I love that. Let's not kid ourselves. She descends the sky and walks among the townspeople and looks around and decides to grant some of them who are worthy and pure of heart their true heart's desire. Nice, right? To nudge this along, Oni, who has a major interest in witchcraft, and along with the help of her somewhat hesitant but going along for the ride friends, Ash and True, she decides to brew this witch's potion that she found in a notebook from her grandmother, and they make a love potion and they divide it in 3, and their job is to drink part of it and then give the other part to whoever they want to share a kiss with at midnight. All 3 friends take their portion, and it is to be drunk by the romantic interest of each person's choice by midnight, and supposedly that will grant them a boost to their romantic relationship. So Roshani Chachki takes on the story first, and this is obviously the wisest decision because she's a fantastic writer and really sets the scene of the story well. She definitely has the most magical story with Oni, who is the kind of witch in the story and is the one who makes the potion in the first place. The others sort of just are humoring their friend, even though she calls them a coven. But she also sets the atmosphere so beautifully. If you've ever read Roshani Chachki's writing, you know the woman can write. And she obviously creates this wonderful fall just around Halloween, semi-spooky, semi-magical. The fall leaves are crunching on your feet and turning all around you. And this masquerade party celebrating the 400th anniversary of the town is taking place at Oni's house. She lives in this wonderful mansion. She has this amazing greenhouse with plants that have possibly used semi-magical properties. You get to see the mansion turn into this magical Halloween wonderland. She was a great choice for the first story. Oni's is an enemies to lovers, so I was going to love this the most anyway, despite the fact that she brewed her potion with this football guy in mind who she's kind of been flirting with. She finds she cannot stop thinking about this super annoying jerk in her class who's science obsessed and hates that she's interested in witchcraft and is constantly making fun of her. Wonder what will happen and who will get her potion. It's so cute. It really is. You get their friction and their general like academic animosity, and oh my goodness, the first story was by far my favorite, but I'm a little biased. What can I say? That's just my favorite relationship dynamic. What does that say about me? I don't know. Zendaya Menon is the one who wrote about Ash, and this is a really cute story. This is Sunshine, okay, which is not a dynamic you see all that often, but we get to see Ash wandering probably haunted house and exploring a story like that before heading off to the masquerade ball with this really charming girl. And the two of them are so perfect for each other. They're both too shy to say, I like you. And it's just so cute watching them. Their story is definitely the cutest. I was smiling the whole time listening to their story, so obviously that one was really sweet as well. And then Evelyn Sky, hers is kind of like this insta love story, and she meets this guy named Orion, and I do have kind of vague interest in like astrology and all the stories of the constellations, so that one was really fun for me as well. I am not usually a short story or a novella kind of girl, but this bind up was so sweet. And you know what? As an audiobook, which is how I listen to it, it was just such a great thing to listen to. And as someone who often gets a lot of interruptions, this was really great because you could turn it off, turn it back on, and you had even less to keep track of as you were going through the stories. Like if you have a skin routine or something, or shower at night, that's sort of the perfect time to listen to this. But it does take place at this masquerade ball that feels super Halloween-y. Everyone's in costumes. So if you're looking for something like that, the superlative for this one is most likely to make you feel nostalgic for high school dances. God, I loved those. Next up is a book that I just recently acquired. This is Spells for Less Things by Jenna Evans Welch. I have seen it floating around for ages. I love her Love and series. Love and Luck was my favorite, I think. And I saw that she had one that was kind of witchy set in Salem. I was pretty excited for it. So this is about Willow and Mason. Willow has a mom that she super kind of does not get along with, unfortunately. And so she is really surprised when her very straight-laced mother is like, I have a secret twin and she just passed away and left us her house in Salem. By the way, she was a witch, or at least thought she was. So we need to go over there and like get the house ready to sell. And Willow's like, this is awesome. I have serious wanderlust. At least we're leaving California. Let's go. And it's also about Mason, who is just moving in with his new foster family, also in Salem. And his mom, unfortunately, couldn't take care of him due to addiction issues. He has found his new family, and they are really kind of interested in maybe being his forever family, which is wonderful. He has sort of over the years gotten through everything by clinging to his love of astronomy. He is obsessed with the stars. He keeps a star notebook, and he's actually really good at it. He's really interested in science and understands everything that has to do with the stars, like way more than I do. Okay, I'd say pretty star. That's Orion's belt. That's all I've got. Obviously, the two of them meet up once they are in Salem, and they do kind of start falling for one another as they try to figure out, was Willow's aunt actually in witch? What was going on there? And is it possible that maybe there is some sort of curse on the family, because that is what was kind of alleged in the will, and that's kind of what her great grandmothers and aunts and the rest of the family are telling her. So it is super cute. You get to see a bunch of shops in Salem. It really sets the atmosphere. It is set in summer, so it's not like super spooky season. You get this instead sweet, warm, cozy feeling of eating ice cream and wandering through these witchy shops, and it just feels like tender, sweet, young love. I really, really loved it. And yet it never felt too young for me. At no point was I like, ugh, I'm so over YA romance. I never got that feeling once. This was so completely and utterly charming. I would definitely say this is more of like a magical realism witchy book. But you do get that sensation of like, are they witches? Are they not? The entire time you never fully solve the mystery, which usually frustrates me, but in this book I kind of love. It also does take a lot from Wicca. There's mentions of Skyclad. The mentions of the rituals and spells in here talk a lot about things that you would see in traditional spells, and even their spells end in the usual "so mote it be" language. So that was kind of fun to see. I also don't remember the Love and books having the same style of writing. It just swirls around you. It feels so lovely and enchanting and beautiful. Some of the phrasing really just felt so elegant and elevated to me, which I loved. Even on the back, I haven't been on stable ground since my mom lost custody of me. 7 years is a long time for anything, let alone not touching earth. There are just these phrases that suddenly hit you, and I thought it was so well done. There are times when this definitely does not necessarily read like a young adult book, but for all the sweet, charming moments and the swirling enchantment that you would expect, this book also really brings you some depth. Both of these characters have some deep emotional, familial wounds that they need to heal from, and that is what helps them come together so quickly. Their bonding makes sense. Their bonding has a real, strong foundation, and I think that's why the development of the relationship, while it happens quickly, it feels authentic. It never feels forced. What was also delightful is that there was never a third act misunderstanding, which I appreciated so much. Those drive me bonkers, which means that the book never lost momentum and I was able to remain utterly charmed the whole way through. And yes, I know I'm using a lot of witchy words, but they are just so applicable to this book. It was cozy, it was sweet, and the language just wrapped right around you until you really did feel like you were in the middle of Salem, standing in the middle of this potentially enchanted house with these two characters. YA adult, I don't think it matters. I think almost anyone could enjoy this book. And without realizing it, I learned a ton about Salem history along the way because they are continually visiting all sorts of historical sites. And it so kills me that I've never been there. At one point, I even tried to convince my husband to move there sight unseen, so that should tell you something. This book gets most likely to make you feel like a warm, cozy, contented kitty all curled up in a sunbeam, or most likely to make you book a trip to Salem, which, by the way, you can't do right now. You need to book it for next year. Not that I checked. Okay, next up is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quanberry. Well, this one's a little strange. So this book takes place in Danvers, which is actually where physically the accusations began in 1962 for the Salem Witch Trials. And some of the characters, in fact, are apparently descendants from those who were involved in said trials in one way or another. And a lot of this parallels or references the trials in some really interesting ways. It is indeed about witchcraft, but it's also about a high school field hockey team getting involved with witchcraft. Yes, I know it sounds a little out there, and you know what? The book is a little out there. It is told in a very reflective, adult, sophisticated voice. It starts in the summer when this field hockey team is attending summer camp and they are realizing that they suck, okay? They are having a terrible time. They're losing all their games and they got to do something if they want to win state championships this year, which they really do. It is 1989, by the way. You gotta love a good book set in the 80s and you get all the 80s goodness. Let me tell you, the hair, the fashion, all the references, and even some of the slang I had to look up. Apparently there's a hairstyle called the claw, which is this crazy tease thing. All this book really literally is about is the Falcons, who after seeing that their team is doing terribly, they decide, you know what, we're gonna resort to witchcraft and writing our name in the devil's book and doing whatever we have to win our many matches of the season. And each chapter is based on a different match and what they feel like they have to do to up the ante to win that match. And you get all the 80s glory. If Heathers and the Coven had a love child, this would probably be it. And throw in some of the Crucible while you're at it, please. That is what you're going to get in this book. And that is really all the description tells you as well. I'm not trying to like hold out on you. That's all the book tells you. Now, that being said, I'm going to say something I normally don't have to say about books, but before you read this, please read The Crucible. Watch The Crucible. Read a summary of the Salem Witch Trials. Watch a summary of the Salem Witch Trials, because the number of references, even characters' names, we've got girl and guy Corey, we've got Ann Putnam or I think they called her Abby Putnam in here. It is unbelievable. They visit Salem at one point. You see them talking about signing their names in the Devil's Book. The references are out of this world. And while they do explain certain things in here and talk literally about the Crucible and the Salem Witch Trials as they're going through, having that background makes you feel like you are picking up Easter eggs left and right. And Quanberry is freaking brilliant for all of the work that went into this book. The number of Easter eggs and parallels and the brilliant ways that witchcraft and the Salem Witch Trials were woven into this book. I can't tell you how impressed I was, because I read this while I was reading a nonfiction book about the Salem Witch Trials, and it was mind-blowing how well it was done. That being said, the entire thing is never going to overdo it. It is fun. It is campy. I want you to think Heathers. I want you to think Wild out there, 80s. This cover fits it to a T. It is neon, it is bright, it is funny, it never takes itself too seriously, it pushes it just to the line. You are never gonna be bored for 1 single second. You are always gonna be going, what are you guys doing? Are you sure you're doing? Like, are you gonna do? Oh my God, yeah, no, you're gonna. Okay, we're going there. It is wild, and it is super self-aware, but it never pokes fun at the original source material. Or is disrespectful of the Salem Witch Trials, thankfully. In fact, at one point, they're like, you know what? We should find out more about witchcraft and like do better with this. Like, let's go to our school library. Obviously, they didn't have the internet. Let's read more about the Salem Witch Trials. I hate sports, okay? I have never played a sport. I will never play a sport. I have zero hand-eye coordination. I should not be allowed to play a sport. I'm more of like a ballet kind of girl. But this was so well written and so funny. And it didn't even matter that the whole thing was about sports, and I was reading continually about these matches because these characters were vivid and hilarious, and the witchcraft was amazing, and the references were amazing, and the whole thing kept moving and kept you guessing, and the points of view kept changing, but it was never confusing. You felt like you get to know the characters, and every character was really, really different. You had some who were super into the witchcraft, some who were super hesitant. I mean, you had the good girl, the bad girl, you had a girl questioning her sexuality, you had a guy on the team. I mean, you had it all. This book was so full of variety, so full of life, so full of joie de vivre, and the 80s setting just really made it pop. I think anyone who's gonna look at this book and read the description and pick it up absolutely stands a great chance of loving it. This book understands that teenage girls are bold and brave and egg each other on and push each other to their limits and want to experiment, and it does get dark and it does get into actual magic. But what teenage girl can honestly say that they have not tried out a Ouija board or played light as a feather, stiff as a board at a sleepover? I know I can't. You know, we're not quite talking about the Coven here. It doesn't go that far and that dark, but we are talking about dark deeds done. I'm not gonna lie to you. These girls are willing to pay the price to win their games and championships. Superlative! I'm gonna say, at least for me, most likely to make you want to try out for the school play instead of a sports team, but for others, maybe not. Next up, we have another Spookopoly read. This is Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu, Suzanne Walker, and Jomette Gill. I hope I'm saying those right. How did I wait this long to read this? I knew I was gonna love it. Everyone says they love it. People read this every year. Why did I wait this long? This was absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. I adored this. This is about a witch and a werewolf, and they were like besties when they were children, and then the werewolf kind of like moved away and they grew up without each other. Oh, the witch's name is Nova, and this is Tam, the werewolf. Everything about this book was absolutely fantastic. Our little witchy poo is working in like a bookstore, which, come on, a witchy bookstore? How am I not gonna love that? Seriously. And then Tam finally comes back after a long period of time away. Yeah, look how cute the little wolfie is. Okay, so the wolf has come back because there is like this creepy, really, really freaking creepy dark horse spirit thing that is haunting the woods, like behind our girl Nova's house. She lives with her nanas. Apparently wolf power is the best thing to like get rid of this thing. So I'm here to like help you get rid of it because I think it's partially maybe my fault or something. Whatever. This is their romance. They also get rid of the demon thing. I don't really care about it aside from the fact that it really creeped the crap out of me. Oh my God, I loved it so much. Can you tell? Can you tell? Like, I can't hide it. And oh my God, they're just the cutest couple ever. Their romance is sweet and endearing, and you could feel their chemistry. And I love the style of art. Can I just say, like, yes, we get the super creepy stuff, but look at these animals in the woods. And of course the ending's kind of predictable and the bad guy's kind of predictable. That is not what these graphic novels are about. I was giggling and squealing, and like these two were just so cute, and you could watch them fall in love, and there were these other little side characters who popped in and out or who were just absolutely hilarious and fantastic and adorable. There's a guy who wanders in with a pigeon head and you don't realize he can talk for a while, for example, and then when he leaves, like, he's been silent this whole time, he's just like, bye, it was nice meeting you. I died laughing. This was just, okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. I just loved this with my whole heart. This one gets most likely to be read again every single year. Also most punny, which is gonna win me over every single time. I also want to talk about Nightbirds, which I read much earlier this year. This was one of the ones that I pre-ordered. And like, why? Nobody's talking about this, and no book boxes picked this book up. I am completely baffled. This is by Kate J. Armstrong, and let me freaking tell you, this book was incredible. You need to read Nightbirds. So, Simta is a town with a secret, and that secret are the Nightbirds. So each season, these beautiful girls in beautiful ball gowns, with their faces hidden by masks, hide behind a series of closed doors and guards. And if you know the great families of the town, the right people, and can pay a large sum of money, they will grant you a kiss. And with that kiss, they will pass on their powers for a very short time. You might get a ton of luck and you can gamble your way out of your debts. You might suddenly become very charming and be granted the hand of the lady you want to marry, or get that seat on the council you were looking for. Each bird has a different gift. Each kiss grants a different power. But the Nightbirds must keep their identities a secret because magic is illegal. And it's especially illegal for women, isn't it always? And it's particularly dangerous at this time because there are these religious groups who are quickly gaining power and prestige, and they are really cracking down on this whole magic is dangerous, magic is illegal, we hate women thing. This year, the birds are as different as their monikers. Okay, each bird gets named for a different thing. You know, the lark might grant you a silvery voice that can convince anyone to do anything, so on and so forth. Matilda, who is sort of a maiden-ish girl, she was raised in this world of ball gowns and glitter and kind of accepts it all as her own, and that kind of makes her a teensy bit reckless. Just letting you know that now. Sayer comes from the wrong side of the canal and has kind of only joined to get a leg up in life because obviously once you find out you have magic, you're going to be granted, you know, like money and power to a certain extent and be taken care of for the rest of your life if you agree to grant power for people's wishes. But she is holding a grudge, which she failed to mention to anyone, so that might come back to be a problem. And then the third new girl, Asa, she is terrified of everything herself, her magic. She comes from a teeny tiny island off the coast of the mainland, and she really joined just to help her family out. Now, normally everything goes off without a hitch. The birds serve for a season or a few seasons, and then their magic kind of fades away, and, you know, they get the benefits of having been a bird. They usually marry well, their families are taken care of, life's great. But this season, things seem to be going very, very wrong. Someone seems to be after the birds. There's some kind of government conspiracy. The religious groups are absolutely off the charts crazy and causing all kinds of problems. And now it seems like they kind of need to band together because they're not being told everything there is to know about their own magic. I remember reading this in a day. I couldn't put this down. It was so unique. It was so rich. The world was so vibrant. The writing was beautiful. I ate this book up. I want to compare this book to like a vibrant red velvet drape. Okay, you felt this world. You could touch this world. It was incredible. It was that rich and dynamic. And as much as the world was, the characters were equally dynamic and rich. Let me tell you, you get to the point where you know them so well, you hit a scene and you're like, oh no, I know what this character is going to do. She's going to do something stupid. They feel so real. They almost feel like friends and you know how they're going to react in certain scenarios. And the magic is so unique. Bestowing magic with a kiss, maybe not entirely so unique. The way their magic functions, the way they each have different powers, the way it works when they come together and you start seeing it towards the end, the legacy of their magic, that's when things start to get so interesting, and I can't tell you more. But oh man, I can't wait for the sequel. I'm still waiting at the edge of my seat, okay? And this came out in like winter. The writing itself is sharp and vivid, but lush at the same time. You can feel the water under your feet, but you can also hear the heels clicking on the marble floor earlier. This book just had me in its grasp from page 1 right until the very end. This is not one you want to miss, and seriously, this is just such a hidden gem. I can't believe I'm not hearing about this book more. Please go read this book. This one gets most likely to make you want to go out and buy a ball gown and a mask. Or start a revolution. Or start a revolution in a ball gown and a mask. You do you. Some honorable mentions that I've already talked to death on this channel, so I'm going to just touch on them briefly and give them their deserved accolades and superlatives. The Wicked Deep. This is about some witches who were kind of off a couple hundred years ago and now come back, take over the body of squirrels, and drown some teenage boys over the summertime to get their revenge. This is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. Very spooky, very of this time. This is most likely to make you never want to swim ever again. Highly recommend. Great writing, very spooky for this time of year. And Rachel Griffin picked this one over Wild is the Witch. The Nature of Witches, her debut, which does not read like her debut, let me tell you. This one is about a girl who lives in a world where magic is dictated by the seasons. Whatever seasonal equinox or solstice you were born on, that is the season in which your magic works and what kind of dictates your personality. We are following an Everwitch who gets magic all seasons, but her personality and magic changes with every season. So boy, that's fun. Pick this one if you want to feel seen during that time of the month when you're having a ton of mood swings, or you want to read about something that's going to make you feel angry about climate change. I hope you've enjoyed our maiden/YA version of witchy recommendation videos. I will be coming back to you very soon with lots more witchy recommendations because that's right, I'm trying to read more books than there are days of the month for spooky season. In the meantime, I will let you get back to your book. I hope you are getting all the chills and thrills that you are wanting from your October reads. But I know I am now going to get back to my giant pile of books about beautiful young witches trying to find their soulmates. I hope I find lots of spicy ones. Because that's right, next up, I will be offering you lots of recommendations in a video that I am lovingly referring to as So You Wanna Date a Witch. I'll see you then. Bye.